today's packet, I want to go ahead and highlight, I'm looking at here, I want to make sure Brielle can come in. She's going to do part of this with me today. But so we'll get over this. Brielle, can you come join us? Oh, look at that, right on cue. Very good, Brielle. Hey, Brielle, do me a favor. Would you pick up my glasses?
Yes. I've got all the important jobs.
That was pretty important if I'm going to see what's going on. You just don't know. Okay, well, I tell you what, you want to just walk us through the packet?
Sure, I can do that.
Well, what do you want? A mic. That's a good idea, too.
Are we on? Oh, thanks, Anthony. All right, so where are you guys on this?
We're just starting.
You're just starting. Okay. So in your packet this month, I think I heard Virginia say you do have your action steps.
You know what? We were checking to see if any people did them from last month.
And
we had at least, I think it was 4 or 5 people who were brave enough to raise their hands.
excellent.
And so thank you. And I know there's some who are not here who have called to report in about what they've done. Okay.
Very good. Very
But
good.
this month,
So we've got. Did you want them to bring up the communication steps on here? Because our first one is going to be
If you
there's
can.
in your handout.
I
and then
know we
there's a
changed the order.
slide, Sorry. There is a handout in your packet called Power to Engage. And these are some communication tips, and Virginia and Josie will get into those more, but that's one of your action steps there, and I'll do a quick intro of that really quickly, and again, Josie and Virginia will get into it, but they are from this book, Living with Dementia Doesn't Mean You Stop Living. This book was actually written by my husband's aunt, Christine, who lives in Chicago, and I've read this book, and when we found out that we were doing this seminar, I was like, can we please use your communication tips? Can we please use part of your book? And she was so gracious about providing that handout to you all. This is a great book. She's doing a seminar in Chicago tonight, very similar to what we're doing today. So it's really neat that we're kind of all on this together. And Josie will mention this, but when I saw it in the book, I had to also say it. The word journey is used in the book, and Josie really wanted to make sure that when we're talking about this topic, we're talking about being on a journey. And right there at the very beginning, everyone in the dementia journey is both a student and a teacher. And anyway, so your first action step is getting familiar with those communication tips. And then you have a handout from Josie. And she'll be going into this in much more detail, but preparing for the journey of caregiving. So that's one of your action steps, is to become familiar with that. And if you are on that journey with a loved one, to use those tips. And then, of course, registering for next month's seminar. If you have, well, you should have, in the back of your handouts, you'll have a yellow sheet. And you can, if you would like to register for next month's seminar, you just fill this out, make sure that your name is on it. And if you want me to do something like add you to next month or add you to the email list, check those boxes so that I'll know.
but she does need to know your name.
But I do need a name.
It's amazing how many we get with register me, but there's no name.
And then I don't know. So those are a couple of things in your handout there. And then there's also a one other thing in here, some resources, and Josie's going to go through that with you. And yep, this fell. I'm a mess this morning, y'all. This other small one is just the flyer for next month's seminar. And of course, if you're on our email list or our postcard list, then you'll be receiving more information about it, and it also will come in your email.
Very good.
That's
Thank you.
everything.
Thanks for putting those together for us. Yeah, and I know there are lots of books about dementia and caregiving and so on, but this is an amazing resource, very practical. So, and we're not here to try to sell the book, but it is a good resource. But we do have the neat one-page handout for you, which is great. And you could, I don't know if you could tell in Brielle's book, lots of flags of important pages and all. You know, it's a lot about enhancing the quality of life. And I don't know, Josie, if you would agree with this, but I think as we are seeing more and more forms of memory loss in our society, as people are living longer, it really becomes, it's part of our living, you know, and we're integrating more, not shutting people out, and so that's really what we want to do, and that's what we'll be talking about today. So I think I'm going to go ahead and invite Josie up to come join us. Why don't you sit right there?
Good morning. It's nice to see the front of your faces.
So we usually ask our panelists to do like a 30-second elevator speech. So just give us the short, you know, what your business is, briefly about your background. Oh yeah, that'd be a good idea. And then we'll learn more about you as we go along here, okay?
Well, good morning, everyone. It is an honor to be with you today. I know this is a very sensitive topic, one that people fear, and the best way to resolve our feelings of fear with someone who's losing their memory is knowledge. So I'm glad that you're here. I am a registered nurse. I've been a registered nurse for 29 years. I started my nursing career as a nurse's aide, and then I went to LVN school, and then I was fortunate enough to go to RN school, and I have a bachelor's and a master's degree in nursing. One of the, I also practice as an adult clinical nurse specialist for 15 years in the areas of hospice and also sleep disorders. So I saw a lot of patients who had sleep disorders for many years, and I know how important sleep is for caregivers as well as the care recipient. I also founded some really meaningful two programs. One of them is I founded a scholarship, a nursing scholarship for a friend of mine who's a nurse who died very young at the age of 27 from a massive heart attack. Her doctor did not believe her that she had a heart condition. And so her scholarship endowment is at UT Health Science Center in San Antonio. I'm very proud of that work. As well as I am proud of the work, I founded a nonprofit here in Georgetown. Some of you may know about it. It's called A Gift of Time. This is a service for seniors. I'm also very proud of the work in our first board that we had. They were just an amazing people. A lot of people ask me, do you work with caregivers? How long?
Do you want, okay.
And so my answer to them is yes. I have worked with caregivers for many years. I am a caregiver. And so I want you...
Oh, you wanted that slide up? Mm-hmm. Can, the statics, I mean, yeah, the one with the wedding? There we go.
So as you can tell, this photo was taken a long time ago. So when people ask me the question, what do you know about caregiving? And I struggle sometimes answering that question because my introduction to caregiving was with my own mother. This is one of my favorite pictures of my mother and I at my wedding. According to my sisters, she was the first one to get ready in the morning. I am her 11th child. And so it was very special. We lived together for a long time in my home. I took care of both my parents. And so we were very close. She arrived at the church. And of course, I arrived with all my wedding attire and bridesmaids, and she was thrilled to be part of that. She helped me put on my wedding gown. Little did I know, at that time, she was already showing symptoms of Alzheimer's. So when people ask me, what do you know about caregiving? Very briefly, I think about my own journey with my mother. And since that time, I've also had the honor to be a caregiver for my husband's parents. And so I take this work very seriously. And one of the best things that I have done this year is to be part of this group. I think this is an amazing group to educate you as we're aging and preparing for some things that life gives us that we're not prepared for. It's all here for you. It's amazing, all the information to learn about communities, to learn about services. So when I don't see very many hands go up when Virginia's asking about, did you do an action item? When you enroll into my service, because I'm a care manager, what used to be called geriatric care management, I'm not certified yet, but I tend to take the certification next year. I had to have so many clinical hours before I can take the exam. I'm a little worried because all that you need is right here to prepare for your journey, especially in caregiving. So please, when you leave every month from a seminar here, take one action item and follow through with it. That's the first thing I ask people, where are you on the journey?
And I didn't even pay her to say that. Thank you, Josie.
Okay, so that's a little bit about me.
So I have to just say this real quickly, too. We don't always go into all this information, but I think it's interesting. Where Josie and I first met was back, I think, in 2016 or right around there, when City of Georgetown finally started a commission on aging. And we were both serving on that commission. And, you know, as a new commission, it's a little uncertain about what you're going to do. Well, Josie and I seem to think we should be doing more, taking more action. And we connected over that. And anyway, it's been a journey since. We've ended up saying it's, commissions don't always take action, but we network with people who do and go from there.
That's right.
Here we are, and again, okay. Well, let's get into some of our content today. And as you can tell, she has wonderful stories to share. So there'll probably be some times, and we've agreed to this, we may say, okay, we're going to need to move on to, or we won't get past the very beginning. So we just want you to know she's aware of this. Okay. And we're not going to go into a whole long treatise on dementia, memory loss, any of this. But one of the things, and I'm already changing the questions on you, but that concern about, oh no, is this memory loss or is this aging? Is this what form of memory loss? Give us some advice.
Let's talk about a little bit of that. Memory loss is not the normal process of aging. Memory loss is actually something is going on with the brain that is causing the brain to, it's a dysfunction. The brain is being damaged in some way. So as we age, and I just attended a webinar from the Alzheimer's Association that Terry County put it out. Our brain starts to change, starts to shrink a little bit in our 40s. So we're already seeing brain changes that early on. This is what the latest research is showing. Now, if you've ever gone into a room and walked in and you thought, oh my gosh, what was I going to get? And then you walk back out and then you don't remember and then you think, oh my God, I have dementia. You don't have dementia.
Please hear that for those of you who...
Now, if you walk into the room and you completely forget, and you walk out and you completely forget where you're at, that's a cause for concern. Okay? There's two different things. And then the other thing I want you to think about, have you ever been in a situation where you are talking with someone and you're thinking, what was that guy's name? And then you think about it at 2 o'clock in the morning and you're tempted to call that person of the conversation just to prove that you're really not losing your memory, that you really knew what you were talking about. Those are normal parts or normal processes of aging. Our brain can only hold so much information. And so when we talk about, I think it's turned off.
Did we have a problem here?
Here, maybe I pushed that.
It's
Oh,
on,
thank you.
okay.
So when we talk about the difference between the two, we really want to know what other symptoms is this person having. And here's the key. When the person starts to exhibit that they cannot function, it's interfering their ability to think and function during the day. We call that in the medical field and nursing field, activities of daily living. If somebody doesn't know how to get into the shower or out of the shower or go into the kitchen, and like in my mom's situation, I found the iron in the refrigerator There is something wrong. There's a clue. Pay attention to those clues. Write them down. If you're concerned about someone who may be exhibiting symptoms of memory loss, you're going to be their advocate. When you go to the doctor, those are the things that you want to report. Those are the things. And the key again, is it interfering with their activities of daily living? Another clue, and this might be that the person's progressing a little more, it's called instrumental activities of daily living. Those are things like making a grocery list, going to the store, coming back without getting lost, paying your bills on time, knowing what your finances are, be able to have a higher functioning, that's executive function, that is this part of the brain right here that helps us with that. That is a clue. Things are not right. That needs to be evaluated by a physician. So, memory loss, I want to say that again because people think, oh, I'm just having a senior moment. Well, you know, you really have to pay attention what those senior moments are telling you. But memory loss is not a normal part of aging. And the reason I want to stress that is because a lot of people blow those memory loss events off. And you should not ever do that. You're saying to someone something's wrong, and you may not be able to communicate with them. The other thing is people hide those symptoms. They don't want their family to know that something's wrong. And again, that's when we want to talk about in a few minutes, assembling your support team. So there are clear signs of memory loss, and I've given you two clues about that to pay attention and make sure that you address that with your physician.
So I think part of this is not to overreact, but not to hide it and ignore it.
And here's why. Memory loss mimics other conditions that have nothing to do with dementia.
There you go.
So here we are. So when you go to the doctor, these are some of the things that your doctors should try to do. They're going to do an interview. They're going to ask you what's going on. They're going to look at your lab work. There's a specific lab work called metabolic panel profile, and it looks at your kidney function, your liver function, your electrolytes. It looks at those things that are important. If you have a thyroid problem, a low-functioning thyroid, that can cause memory issues. If you're a heavy drinker, that can cause memory problems. Alcohol in the medical nursing field is known as a neurotoxin. That says it all right there. So if you're a heavy drinker, I'm not here to judge, but if you're a heavy drinker, you could have memory problems, and there is a specific dementia dealing with alcoholism. But here's another one. You could have a vitamin deficiency. You could be anemic. Here's the big one that mimics memory loss. You could be depressed and not even know it.
And we see that a lot in seniors, don't we?
And we see that a lot in seniors, and so don't panic. Be your advocate. If you are married or you have a partner or whatever the relationship is, work together on this. That's going to be the person part of your support care team. But you have to know why. If you end up with a lump on your arm, you ignore that? No. If you find a lump on your breast, women, would you ignore that? Then why do we ignore problems with memory? We have to take it seriously. Now, I don't want it to be all Debbie Downer because there's good news now.
Thank you.
There's good news. Since my mother's diagnosis back 32 years ago, we now have more medications that are coming out on the market to slow the progression of the disease. And one thing that happens, you've all heard about this, amyloid is a protein in our brain. And we all kind of make it, but there's a tipping point. Some of us make more than others. When we make more, that's when the problem starts. And it's an ongoing problem. It's going to get worse in time because we need to find the drug that will target that process right there. This is a 100-year-old disease, over 100 years, when Dr. Alzheimer's discovered it. So it's over 100 years old. But there's new medications, or one of the newest medication out there, and I'm not going to talk too much about that because I don't want to seem I'm promoting medications. But what I'm trying to give you, we have hope now, folks. This is the big one. We have hope of medications coming out on the market that can slow the progression of this disease, and we should all be celebrating that. That is wonderful. Today, as we speak today, there are literally thousands of studies going on right now to treat this problem. Thousands of studies, hundreds in Austin, in Texas. And do you know why? Texas alone is getting close to having 500,000 people living with Alzheimer's disease in the next few years. 500,000 people. But there's hope.
And along that line, just to emphasize the importance of information and dealing with it, finding, and this will be a segue into your, I know you're big on support team, and we're going to talk about that. But as I look back at my situation with my mother 25 years ago or so, you know, it's depression. And they put her in a hospital to deal with depression. As I've made this, my own learning, I'm going, there was more than, as we have more people dealing with this, we have to turn to professionals, not just our neighbor down the street who's going to offer their advice and diagnosis. I would suggest they be a professional.
That's right.
And take action. So, okay, let's move on. One of Josie's favorite topics when she talks about being prepared and about what our seminars have been about. In fact, in your notebook on the very first few pages in there, it's more than just a support team for this, but we talked about, who is your attorney, who is your physician, who is your whatever, having these people in place. So talk to us about that.
So have you ever heard the term called person-centered care? If you haven't, Medicare's big on it now. So is the Alzheimer's Association, so is everybody else. Person-centered care means you, the individual. You're in the center. And around you is going to be all the people, professionals and non-professional, that are going to support you on this journey of being a caregiver or the journey of Alzheimer's. Now, who are these people? Well, they can be care managers. They can be your doctors. They can be your neighbors. They can be your faith-based community. They can be also services, in-home care, hospice, home health, people that come in and provide care, personal hygiene care for you. This is your support team, someone that you can talk to, someone that's going to help you along the journey. And why is that? Because caregiving is not for one person only. That's why caregivers tend to burn out. They don't assemble that support team around them. And unfortunately, the care recipient ends up in the hospital because the caregiver is now too ill to care for that loved one.
I hope you hear that, because I know several of you in the room are caregivers, and we're all caregivers in different ways.
That's right.
But getting to this level where you are really being more, tied down is not the right word, but you have to be with the person, or you need to be, and you can't do it all yourself. You need the team. And I want to just take a little minute to address some of that when you just mentioned about the home care and all, and the resources that are provided. I'm sorry, Stacy with Visiting Angels couldn't be here today, but we were clarifying with Stacy. I'm just using this as an example. There are other groups, I realize that, but they are one of our educational partners. We said if someone needs care, come in and kind of like respite care or a few hours or whatever. Do you have people who can provide that care, and not just Johnny off the street walked in and signed up and go sit with those people? They have training too for how to interact, kind of like the communication tips and more. So if you were ever in that situation, you'd want to make sure that the people you're using know about.
That's correct. Now, here's the other thing. A lot of people will hire someone they know from somebody to somebody who they knew from church that person and related to somebody. Be very careful who you have in your home, number one. Number two, are they trained to manage symptoms while you are gone? Now, some people are comfortable with that, some are not, but as a professional, I interview a lot of clients, and they'll ask me, well, I'm going to get so-and-so that knows, and I say, well, are they trained in these things? Well, no. Then why are you hiring them? Because you're handing over someone for that person to come in to take care of that they're vulnerable. They can't fend for themselves, right? So you want to be careful. You really want to think this through before you make that kind of decision. There are a lot of services out there that are excellent, that are good. They're going to sit with you. They're going to talk to you about what they offer, and that's great. And a lot of these services work with you for as long as they can. Remember, a lot of these services are temporary. Someone with a diagnosis of Lewy body dementia, someone with a diagnosis of Alzheimer's, someone with a diagnosis of frontotemporal lobe dementia. These are all different types of dementias that happen, and sometimes people can have a mix of both of them. So be careful who is coming into your home, and one of the things that I offer my clients is, these are options of services. This is what's located here in Georgetown. This is what's located out in Georgetown. What are you looking for specifically? And that's when I ask them, what is the diagnosis of your loved one? Because we need to know who's going to be coming into the home. Now, I do want to mention very quickly, this year, in April, I'm part of what they call the Alzheimer's Impact Movement, AIM. And I've recently have been asked to be an ambassador now. And that is, we are a group of volunteers that advocate for research and programs for caregivers. And because the Alzheimer's Association did such a fantastic job, we had 3 bills passed in this year's legislative session to support caregivers and training for people that are working in facilities. That's important. If you are going to move into a facility, I always... Community, sorry.
Those of you who've been here before will understand.
You can tell how old I am with the facility. And a nursing home is not called a nursing home anymore. It's called skilled nursing. Has a different name. But my point to this is, if you're going to move into a community, don't just look at the nice chandelier and the piano that's playing and all the whistles and the bar and the swimming pool. They're beautiful. I've been there. Ask the serious questions. What about, I have this condition, what about the care? Is your staff trained in this? People with Parkinson's, those are very key questions because of medications. Do they understand the importance of my medications? You need to be the advocate for yourself. If I'm not with you, let somebody help you with this. It doesn't have to be me. But these are wonderful places. But you want to make sure that if you're moving in and this is going to be home for you for the rest of your life, that you understand the level of care that you're going to get.
And I just want to jump in here too. We do have some, great memory care communities in the area. One thing, just a little background for people who are newer to this, we often see memory care as part of a multi-level care in a larger community. So it is a secure floor, wing, whatever. We also have standalone memory care. You can get into all kinds of discussion, but it's back to what is really going on. And I do believe we see a wide variety. And so I can say this because I'm not naming any names. You can go into some of these communities and the people kind of are parked in front of the TV for most of the day. I mean, I'm sorry, but, well, they're comfortable, they like that, and okay, so you see that. You see ones where they're more engaged. There's, for those of you who had children who went through Montessori, preschool and elementary and all, but where it's a very child-focused, engaged, I mean, it's a great environment. We've seen a movement coming to the States. It started in Holland or in Amsterdam, whatever, and but where the residents are involved in decision making and helping me. And now that and there can be from one to the other, but you have to think what's important to you to feel secure about and safe where your loved one is. Chances are, unless you plan ahead, you're going to be making decisions for your loved one.
Correct. And remember, as we age, we're all going to need help at some point or another. With someone with memory loss, I like to use that term better. Dementia, the Latin word means out of one's mind. And I really prefer the word memory loss because the brain is damaged in some way. And we need to support that person who has now this disability. But I do want to talk very briefly about care. When your loved one is no longer able to care for themselves, it becomes very intimate very quickly. And what I mean by that, someone is going to undress this person and help them bathe. Someone is going to help them with going to the bathroom. And so these are very serious discussions I have with my clients of what kind of care would you like to have? What are you asking for? A certified nurse's aide? A caregiver? Those terms are now being used. What are you looking for? And there's great care out there, and there's a lot of people that provide great care. The other service I want to talk about is, and this is also when we're talking about the late stages of this journey, hospice. You have a choice of hospices. You don't have to pick the one that your doctor just gave you. You have a choice. That is one of the things that Medicare makes sure that we have choices. So you have a choice. I always give my clients 3 or 4. These are 4 hospices. This is where they're located. I know I've met some of these people, or I worked with this group. And so we talk, we collaborate. We are working together to provide care. And what is our goal? Comfort and keeping the care recipient with the memory loss out of the hospital. Because that is very hard on someone who has memory loss. We've taken them out of their normal environment and thrown them into a situation. They have no idea what's going on, and then there's bells and whistles going off, and it becomes very stressful, not only for the care recipient, but for the caregiver. So that's part of your team. And it's okay to talk about it. Gosh, hospice has been around for years, and my husband and I have used them on our parents, both sets of parents. And they've been a great support. So these are very serious discussions. But I'm going to also talk a little bit about the fun. Now, my mother loved Tejano music.
Okay.
Tejano music.
Oh, yeah.
Now, we're in Texas, folks. You know what that sounds like. That nice accordion going, you know, that oompa sound. Oh, boy, she loved it. And every time we turned the radio on or played a CD, my mom was alive. I mean, she just came around. My sister and I would dance in front of her and carry on. We'd have tamales, and sometimes we'd have enchiladas, and we would just have a great old time. And those are the moments that I'll treasure forever. Caregiving is not about just the frustration and the worn out that we feel. You will remember the moments that you spent with your loved one that brought them happiness. You will never, ever regret that. I've never heard a caregiver say, I regretted being a caregiver. I have never heard that. Never. And I hope I never hear it. But there are great times with that person with memory loss. I remember also she used to be a quilter. We couldn't give her the needle anymore, but we would give her little scraps of paper, and she would put them together. She would actually and that was fun for her, and we'd just watch her. And sometimes it'd be the same material going back and forth, but that's what she enjoyed. She enjoyed babies. She had 11 of them. So there were always some kid that we'd bring in so my mom could watch them and interact with them, and it made her happy. We'd have somebody come in and cut her hair, and we'd fix it up. I'd put a little lipstick on her, and she was happy. My mom was a happy person living with Alzheimer's.
Did you hear that? Happy person living with Alzheimer's. I'm so afraid that some of us who've not had experience, it's kind of shut people away. Just leave them sitting in the recliner in front of the TV. And we're missing out on special times. And what a celebration of life.
It sure is. I mean, I'd have to tell you that this little funny story real quick. I took her to Walmart one time, and she couldn't walk anymore, so we put her in those little wheelchairs that have the basket in front of them. And so I was taking her around, kind of showing her some clothes, and she could, she can obviously see, but her speech was already starting to really become a problem. And there was this rack with lots of clothes on it, and I said, look, Mom, look at this. Isn't this pretty? Look, Mom, look at this. And then all of a sudden, I started to move her forward so we can go to another section of Walmart. And all of a sudden, this rack was following us. And so I kind of looked around and I thought, what is going on here? She had grabbed on to the clothes and was pulling it with us. And I thought, I probably misbehaved at some store, and now she's getting me for that. But it was so funny. And I would tell her, I said, Mom, let go of that. And of course, my mom would just look at me, she'd smile, and I didn't know if she wanted that particular item or not. But just that moment that I had with her laughing, was awesome. Remember, they can feel emotions, they can see you smile, they can hear what you're saying. Let's talk about...
You want to talk about the communication?
Yeah, so let's talk about the communication. You can tell when I get excited about something because of the sound of my voice. And I don't like it when people keep asking the same question. Stop that. The way you communicate with someone who has a brain dysfunction, a brain disability, is very important. We want to speak gentle, soft, short phrases. We want the environment to be calm. If you are a type of person that has to have the radio on, the TV on, the lights on, your cell phone is going off, this is a stressor for someone who has memory loss. It's too much information coming in, and they can't process it like you and I can. So, gentle, soft voice. Touch. Someone touching your hand. I love to touch my mom's hand. I also love to kiss my mom on the forehead because she used to love to use the soap Crest, I think is what it's called, and it just heavily perfumed. I don't know why she liked that stuff. And every now and then when I'm in the store, I grab a bar and I smell it because it reminds me of her. And she knew that when I would get closer to her, that's a form of communication, that I was loving on her. And she was receptive to it. So what you say and how you say it is important to someone with memory loss. You see, they're struggling inside to communicate with you. And when we become irritated and impatient and, oh, would you stop asking me that question? Guess what's going to happen to them? Yeah, and they might become more agitated because they're trying to tell you something. And you have to kind of look into their eyes and make sure that you're connecting with them.
So when we say kind of take the chill pill and get out of our world, slow down, and give them the time to respond and us to respond.
Now, I want to talk about the caregiver just for a minute because I was one, remember? So I had all the emotions that the literature shows. I was angry. Why her? She was devout Catholic, raised 11 children and a grandson. She loved her family. She was a wife to a farmer. Why her? Angry. I was grieving. I can no longer communicate with my mom like I used to. I am not the daughter anymore. Now I have to be the one that cares for her. I couldn't have mother-to-daughter conversations with her because That's not where she was. Guilt. I have to go to work. I got to find people to come in and help with this. Thank God my sister stepped in. So we surrounded her with family. Family that she knew, their voices, their faces, even though she couldn't communicate, but she knew who they were. That was important. So we as caregivers need a break. I started losing my hair, I lost a lot of weight, and I became very angry, and anyone who told me, you need to do this, I was ready to attack them. Because I was not sleeping, maybe 4 hours. I would sleep between, my parents had 2 hospital beds, and I'd sleep on the floor in the middle. And then the phone would ring in the morning, oh, can we get a report on Mom? No, you cannot get a report on Mom. You need to come in here and see her. And I was running low on fuel. And it's okay to have those feelings. That's part of the caregiving journey. It is okay to feel tired. It is okay to feel like, oh my God, I'm going to pull my hair out. They ask me one more question. That's part of the journey. That's why assembling your support team is so important. That is vital to the journey of how you're going to respond to them.
So it then becomes support for yourself as the caregiver also.
Exactly. Again, those companies that are out there, services that you can hire for help, talk to them. See how it goes. See if they kind of warm up to your loved one. Interview them. This is a big job. Interview them. You're paying for the service. Talk to them. See how they're going to interact with your loved one. And a lot of companies out there provide excellent care. Excellent care.
So I want to move us along just briefly, kind of relates, but so what about those of us who are not directly related, but we may have a friend, a very close friend, and then we don't know what to do?
So that's a really good question. And here's what I want to say. If somebody has cancer, okay, somebody has cancer, think about all the support systems that they have in place. Think about people at the church. They're going to bring food. They're going to have a prayer session. They're going to go visit this person. They're going to send a card. If you are a caregiver, are they getting the same support? And if they're not, why not? So we, as people that are on the outside, you can call someone who's a caregiver. Hey, how's it going? Do you need me to go do an errand for you? What can I do for you? Offer them a home-cooked meal. Offer them to come in and just visit with them. And if you find that you're uncomfortable with the person who has memory loss in the late stages, smile at them, wave at them. Be happy that you're there. They can see you, and they want to be seen. So there's a lot we can do for people with memory loss. Our community here is not prepared for people with memory loss. If you go to the grocery store, it's loud, the lights are shining, and the floors are shiny. Their vision is impaired because of the memory loss. It's unsafe sometimes to take them into these places. The restaurants are loud. Have you ever been to a couple of these restaurants and they have the high ceilings? That's a lot of distraction for someone who's in the advanced stages. We need to advocate for them. We need to advocate for them. We need to go to the restaurants that are not so loud. We need to ask our church, do we have prayer sessions for that are caregivers? Did you know that November is Alzheimer's and Caregivers Month? We should be having a big party for that. So these are the things that we as a community can do. We can be the change agent here. You just have to believe that you can. You just have to believe that you have that power to influence others to make some of these changes.
Wow, I just keep spinning thinking, and when people say, oh, we can't go out to eat, Dad will dribble food, or, but if you've been out to restaurants and those people who are sensitive, it can be such a beautiful story. When I've seen families, when someone is having challenges, but when the family appreciates and supports and they're having a good time, that's what you focus on, not the messy eating or whatever. We let children get by with it. So, but
Exactly. It's okay. It's all right. Because I want you to think about it this way, and I had this conversation with Virginia and Brielle. Years ago, I remember this, years ago, children with disabilities were not allowed in public schools.
they were.
They were not allowed in public schools. What was the thinking behind that? That has changed. People with memory loss are being closed out or shut out of our communities, and that should not be happening. So the more we interact with someone who has memory loss, now we want to be careful, make sure they don't come too aggressive, but you can manage that very calmly, okay? It becomes acceptable. People are not going to stare. They know what that is. They know what that is. Why is it that we can tolerate some person that's been drinking too much and gets loud and rowdy and, starts having all these weird behaviors and, he's drunk. Well, but we can't handle somebody that's coming in that can't respond to us because they have Alzheimer's? Do you see what I'm saying? We need to change the culture, and the way we do it is with our own behavior and supporting our caregivers and the person that is living folks that are living with the disease. And it's not contagious. It's not COVID, it's not the flu, it's not RSV, it's their brain that unfortunately tipped over and made way too much amyloid and tau, and now they're having this disability.
I want to skip on over so we can open it up for questions too, but one question. We talked a while ago about communities and that there's a wide variety and being aware. And I hope this is a fair question, but and I know it depends, everything depends. But if I'm a caregiver for someone in my home, when is there a clue or a key for when would it be better for that person to be cared for in a community? Can you give us any suggestions, recommendations?
Yeah, so what I see working with caregivers is what do you have at home, number one, that is safe for this person to stay in the home. Now, when I make home visits, I go in and I usually tell my clients, I'm going to make a home safety check, and the person will tell me, oh my God, I have to vacuum and then I've got to clean. I said, no, I'm not going in for that. I want to make sure, I want to look at the doors. Do you have stairs? Are there grab bars? What does the shower look like? So when somebody is not safe to stay in your home, okay, too many falls, they're very aggressive, you can't control them with medication, they don't seem to be responding to any of the therapies, you should have had the plan in place long before we got to that point. Because in Georgetown, there's only 2 skilled nursing facilities. There's a lot of memory care facilities, but there's only 2 skilled nursing facilities. And remember, Medicare does not pay for long-term care. So, in my research of places here, memory care can run $8,000 to $10,000 or more a month, and the price goes up every year. In-home service, I just did a whole plan for a client. I said, okay, if you want to live independent, and then you move to assisted and you want to have additional care, this is what the literature shows that it's going to cost you. So let's say for in-home care for someone a month, if they're going to be there 3 or 4 days a week, can run anywhere, depending, if you want them 24/7, $10,000 to $12,000 a month. And I use the lower range number. So that's why it's important to have a financial advisor or a wealth manager or someone who can talk to you about your finances. I give you the numbers, and then I ask the client to follow up with their whoever, attorney, CPA, whoever they need to figure out how much money are you going to have for the long run? Because remember, there's still going to be a surviving spouse who's also going to need care. Now, for people who ask for my service, I ask them, do you have long-term care insurance? If they say yes, I want to say the first thing you need to do is go to your book and find out if they have a care manager in network that you can work with. Folks, it does not have to be me. If you are paying for this service, call them up, ask them, I need a care manager to start working with me. That's what you're paying monthly for. I had a client tell me, oh, I'm going to wait till I really need it. And I said, well, you need it now. Now is a good time. Let's start calling. It got them on the process of getting a care manager that their insurance in-network paid. I was out of the picture. And it doesn't matter. What you need is help. They're going to do the same thing I'm doing, but your company is going to pay for it. Does that make sense to everyone? Yeah? Do you have long-term care?
And it's always finding out what your long-term care covers. That's one thing. We've had some sessions on this, and it's such, and you got to read the really fine print, and you got to understand it. Or talk to someone who, from that company, who will give you the truth about what you have, and that can be hard. Let's go ahead and open up for questions. Will you be the mic runner, Brielle? So what I am going to remind you, hello, Mr. Norton, yes. When we ask questions, Jim Norton will be first. If it's a very personal situation, that you'll be better off to talk to Josie afterwards. If it's kind of general information, that will be helpful to everybody. So I just kind of set that as a ground rule. Brielle's going to be our mic runner. Jim.
First of all, thank you so very, very much for having people who know what's going on and can talk to us about it. First question I have, I always thought that hospices were the people that are dying. My mother and dad both had hospice care, and that was it. They had another 2 or 3 months, and hospice did a great job. Apparently, hospice has more duties than just taking care of dying people.
Okay, let's let you clarify with hospice.
Yeah, so this is thank you for asking that, because you guys know that President Jimmy Carter is on hospice like 8 months now. So hospice has a set of criteria that they look at the client to see if they qualify. I'm going to give you a personal example. My mother-in-law, who was in the hospital, said to us very clearly, now she had some memory issues, but she could still advocate for herself. I don't ever want to come back here, and I want to die where I live, which I won't say right now. I don't ever want to come back here. We called in hospice. She was on hospice for 5 months because she met the criteria for hospice. Let the hospital evaluate your loved one if they are a candidate for hospice. Now, there's a 6-month. Are they going to live 6 months or less? Sometimes they can re-qualify for hospice. Now, with hospice, remember, that's paid by Medicare. Typically at 100%, they pay for the medications, so you get a social worker, a registered nurse, an aide, a chaplain, and then you have the medical director. So they work as a team to provide services, and there's a lot of good hospice service out there. We just want to make sure that that person qualifies for hospice care, and there are symptoms to look for, which is called end-of-life care. That's all part of it. So if you don't know, you can ask your doctor, what do you think? Do you think we're kind of at that point? And then your doctor can say, well, I don't know, but we can evaluate them. I can call this hospice. Here, call these people. They have to have an order from a physician in order for them to come and visit you. So part of your team, your support care team, is going to be your doctor. And hospices cannot just go in your home. They have to have a referral from someone. And it's usually a doctor, or if the doctor has a nurse practitioner who works under the supervision of a physician, that also qualifies as a referral. So that's a good question. Don't wait till 3 days before it happens.
What are the criteria? Okay. Oh, yeah. Can
So,
what are the criteria to look for? And I think this is a good point. I know it extends beyond, but you have obviously experience with hospice care.
Yes.
So, for so many of us, hospice has been, they're dying in 2 weeks or 3 weeks or something. But we know it can be longer than that. So can you give us the major criteria?
Yeah. So some of the things are they declining cognitively?
So that
Dementia
is
is a criteria now, or Alzheimer's is a criteria for hospice. They used to look at lab work. One of the particular things they used to look at, I don't think they do this anymore, is the albumin level, which means the nutrition part. So this person is no longer taking in enough calories to live, to be sustainable, correct? Are they withdrawing from social activities? We are built, folks, we are built to prepare for natural death to happen. We are built already. That's in place. Our body knows what to do when our time comes to die. And so there's a series of questions, memory decline, they're not able to care for themselves, they're not eating very much, they're really withdrawing from, you and everybody else. Other things that they have no interest in anything, problems swallowing. So they look at this specific criteria. For instance, I don't know what the situation with the president is, but we all know he had brain cancer, right? So that was maybe his diagnosis for the admission. But the key thing there is that there is a list of symptoms that they look for. You just don't say, I want hospice, and they're in. They have to meet the criteria, and the best way to do that is to have a hospice person, usually a nurse will go in and evaluate the client to see if they meet the criteria or not. But those are some examples.
Okay, we got a question. Oh, okay, Don, and then we'll come over here. Okay.
Does a meningioma enter into this at all?
As far as like memory loss or hospice?
What would you repeat what he said? What was he asking about? Meningioma?
Does meningioma enter into this?
So this is a brain type of...
It's a tumor on the brain.
Yeah, so I'm glad you said that, because some people that exhibit memory loss, when they start doing the scans, CAT scans or MRIs or PET scans, they usually will find, if they can't find, they're looking for a brain tumor, they're looking for a silent stroke. So people with brain tumors sometimes can exhibit those behaviors or those same symptoms associated with memory loss. And so, again, the planning for the journey is about the same. Planning for the journey is about the same.
Okay, let's go over here.
This has been most informative to me, and I appreciate Josie for even inviting me. My question, explain that tier of dementia, Alzheimer's. I mean, is there an umbrella, and under that umbrella you have Alzheimer's, and are there other diseases under that? So what's the umbrella?
Okay, so the word dementia is actually a term that's used for specific symptoms. That has to do with the level of functioning, the brain functioning. That's a term, that's like saying cancer. We know that somewhere along the line, the cells are going to multiply and it's causing the cancer problem. Underneath cancer is breast cancer, lung cancer, prostate cancer. Well, dementia is, if you look at it, it's a category, a term in itself, that's describing symptoms of memory problems, problems with thinking, problems with task. They could be more severe. Under the term dementia, then we get down to the specifics. Is it Alzheimer's? Is it Lewy body? Is it Parkinson's with dementia? Is it frontal temporal lobe dementia? And the list goes on. So think of it as dementia is a term, and underneath that are the different categories of the types of dementia, just like cancer. So the importance of that is treatment, looking for behaviors, those kinds of things are important. So I hope does that answer the question, Pat? Yeah. And in this book...
I was going to mention in the Living with Dementia Doesn't Mean You Stop Living, they talk about the characteristics of dementia, the 4 A's. So that gives you more information, the stages. So if, I don't know if this is in the library, but anyway, if you need more reference, but there are lots of books that go very in depth depending on your situation, that may be the most appropriate. For those of us who want more of an introduction, and that's one.
And don't forget, the Alzheimer's Foundation
Right.
of America, the Alzheimer's Association, if you just go to their website and there's actually a little tag that says, what is dementia? A little umbrella's going to pop up and it says dementia, and then it gives you all the categories, and then you can click on each one and read more about them. So those are very good questions, because when people say, well, she has dementia, but she doesn't have Alzheimer's. Well, Alzheimer's is a form of dementia.
Or we can say memory loss, and then we don't have to kind of worry if we're using the right term or not. But along those lines, when you get your follow-up from Brielle, we will send a link to some of the resources that are just too many pages to print on here, but we try to be selective of what will be, we think, valuable, helpful resources. So that will be coming your way for attendees. Did we have the mic go over there? Yes.
I have a question about making diagnosis of Alzheimer's in the early stages. I don't think a primary care physician really has the time and the setup to make that diagnosis right there in the office. So how difficult is it to get a neuropsychology team to get evaluated? Because I think that's a difficulty.
Yeah, that's a really good question.
explain his question, too.
Here how it goes. So you're right. Primary care physicians, depending on their practice, so we have general practitioners, we have internal medicine, we have geriatricians who study seniors like us who study this. So the first thing you want to do is when you go to your primary care, who might be just a general practitioner or internal medicine, they're going to do a screening. So they do the mental screening. They can do what they call the SLUMS test, which is another screening tool. Then they'll ask you about what behaviors are you seeing. Then here's the key, folks. You need to go to a neurologist. That is the person who is going to do further studies, further tests on you to see kind of what kind of memory loss are we dealing with. Okay, now here's the other thing. So they're going to look at lab work. Then if they think that you are not successful in some of these screenings, they move a little bit further. They're going to order scans. They want to see, are you having these little mini strokes? Vascular dementia. Also, they're going to look at your lab work. They're going to look at, can you function? Can you move? Can you walk? Are we looking at Parkinson's? Remember, Parkinson's, 80% of people with Parkinson's can also have dementia. So neurologist is your next best friend. Then they put together a team. So then you have a neuropsychologist who does the big screening. They do the test, the computerized test. They look at your education level, what you did as a profession. My mother was a housewife. She was illiterate. She had no formal education. She had all the disadvantages of a person with full-blown Alzheimer's. But if you are a person with higher education, higher functioning, they look at all that. Then you have a psychiatrist. They want to rule out depression. Are there other behaviors or other mental disorders that are not being picked up? That is your team. And if you go to the American Alzheimer's Association or the Alzheimer's Foundation of America, it'll tell you what that team looks like. A lot of primary care physicians are great, but they are not comfortable making the diagnosis of Alzheimer's or frontal temporal lobe. They're not comfortable with that. I have clients that tell me, oh, the doctor knows, but he just kind of blew it off. My answer to them, you need to get another doctor. Because you're going to end up in a crisis situation with your loved one in your home. Now, that may sound hard, but somebody's not paying attention as to what's going on with that person.
Let me ask you a question that we should have asked earlier. So for those of us who aren't there yet, we don't think, with memory loss, I don't know, ask my husband maybe, but are there things we can do to kind of slow it down?
Yeah, so here's some things, and at my table I always have all kinds of education. Number one is take care of your health. If you're not having a yearly wellness exam where you're getting your blood checked, your doctor's asking you a question, about how you're doing. Make sure that you have that done. If you're 65 and over, they're supposed to do a cognitive screening. That's part of the wellness exam. Number 2, socialize. Have fun, folks. What we learned from the pandemic is that social isolation causes mental decline. It doesn't mean drink alcohol. It means get together with friends, travel, live your life. Enjoy it. Take a course that maybe you've decided that you wanted to learn how to play the guitar and you've never done this. Your brain has thousands, billions of cells that have never been used. Start using them. Exercise, 30 minutes a day, whatever you like. Dancing, yoga, it doesn't matter. But get out there and move. Watch what you eat. The more processed food you eat, the worse it is for your brain. The more processed food you eat, the worse it is for your brain. And here's another big one, because I did sleep medicine for so long. Sleeping. When we sleep, our brain is supposed to shut down for the night, like a computer. And it allows our body, especially the cerebral spinal fluid, to kind of cleanse our brain while we're sleeping. That's the latest research. So the cerebral spinal fluid clears all the debris we collected all day long. So if you're sleeping 4 hours and you think that's great, I have news for you. That is not enough. Do you snore? Do you have restless leg syndrome? Why are you not sleeping? Are you drinking coffee right before you go to bed? Are you on your computer 30 minutes before you go to bed? Because you shouldn't be. Your brain is still on. Sleep is very important. And as a matter of fact, for people that are having memory problems, one of the things you're going to do is do a sleep study on you. That's one of the things they're going to do. Does this person have underlying problems? Sleep apnea, restless legs. Are they acting out their dreams? See, it's all, the brain is just such a marvelous organ that we have, that we've been blessed with. And yet we take it sometimes for granted. For me, I go swim. That's my thing. In the garden, I'm out there. Of course, it was hard in this heat, I have to tell you. It was a real killer. But that's my thing. That's my therapy. And so you need to pick out what is yours. So stay socially connected, stay active, make yourself happy. This is a happy time in our lives. This is how we minimize our stress. Stress is a big factor in playing with, affecting our memory.
Oh, thank you. So hope to see you next month. Next month we go to the third Thursday, because the second Thursday I'll be at a seniors conference with other wonderful people around the country who do work similar to what I do. So I hope to see you there. We'll be talking about scams and fraud and all that interesting information that we need to be aware of. So thanks for coming.